So Culture Secretary Lucy Frazer has urged sporting chiefs to ban transgender athletes from elite women's sporting events.
She said those sporting bodies have a duty to set out clear guidance as biology matters, and male-born athletes have, clearly, an indisputable edge.
Do you know, sometimes you feel like you're saying things which should be... we should just have a thing underneath that says blindingly obvious.
Yeah.
Well, joining us now is Olympic swimmer and medalist Sharron Davies. Good morning, Sharron. I mean, you've been fighting this fight for probably more than 10 years now, and you just must still feel we should just put the strap underneath saying the blindingly obvious. But at least Lucy Frazer has come out and said something now.
Yeah, good morning to you both. It's funny, isn't it? Because when I spoke to you last week, I was on my way to see Lucy Frazer. So that's where I was going, down to Westminster, because there was a meeting with quite a few of the governing bodies, including the FA and the ECB, on Monday. And surprise, surprise, they didn't want me there. Because I will point out to them that they're talking rubbish whenever they bring up these ridiculous, T levels, reduce it for a year, reduce it to half what women get, twice what men get, whatever. It's all absolute garbage. We know that males and females are physically very different. And that's the reason why we have that category in sport. So Lucy is doing a great thing. What we need to do, though, is to bring consequences in, because this is sex discrimination. We are discriminating against people that are biologically female in sport. So removing funding, I think, is the next step that we actually have to do. And the other thing that's really important is to not limit it to elite sports. Little girls in school matter just as much. Yeah. We need pathways for those athletes to come through. To say one group of women are worthy of fair sport and another group are not is ridiculous.
And Sharron, just clarify, when you said they didn't want you there, did you mean the cricket and football bodies? Because, of course, they have done nothing at all about what they don't want to... They refuse to do so far what Lucy Frazer is urging the rest to do.
Yeah, and the ECB are even going against the International Federation, because they have actually protected the female category. So what we're finding is that when we have a Leah Thomas in a sport, the sport will turn around and do the blindingly obvious, because then they can't ignore it any longer. And that's what's happening, is that sports where they don't at the moment have someone like Leah Thomas, they're just hoping it's going to happen to somebody else, and somebody else will sort the problem out. But this has been going on now since 2015, when the IOC changed the rules, and the government have been given guidance to governing bodies now since 2020, 4 years. So it's time to stop giving guidance and to give instruction, and for there to be consequences to it.
Well, that's the point. It's just guidance, isn't it, Sharron? And time is everything. If they wanted legislation, they might struggle to get the Labour Party to support it, when Keir Starmer was struggling to say whether a woman can have a penis or not, the Labour leader.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are seeing that sign of, slightly changing, haven't we? We've seen Wes Streeting this week, to eat some humble pie and to reverse, and to credit to him. It is about people saying, look, I was wrong. What frustrates me is that all this evidence has been there for a very long time. This isn't something which all of a sudden has just arrived in the last couple of weeks. This has been around for a long time, and it's been ignored by so many people in positions of authorities who should have done their proper homework and not just followed fashionable ideology. And to throw women's sport the way that they have done under the bus, since 2015, without even looking at the science. And the science has never changed. There's never been a single study that shows us that we can remove male puberty advantage. And every Olympics ever in history shows us the difference between males and females. To just shut women's sport away was awful, and so misogynistic. And now in those very misogynistic sports like cricket and football, tennis, golf, we're literally still banging our heads against a brick wall. And you have to ask, why is this?
And so the people, Sharron, who have fought to have transgender women in those competitions, their argument is what? Their argument is gender is a cultural construct. It isn't what you are born into. It is something we decide, that I wear dresses and that Andrew wears a suit.
Most of the time.
And therefore...
I wear a suit sometimes, though. So, it isn't crazy.
But that's the cultural... And therefore, they would say, as somebody wearing a one-piece swimsuit as opposed to a little pair of Speedos, they should be allowed to race in that race, and that they've taken sufficient hormones to reduce their testosterone, therefore they're no longer a threat.
Well, in lots of sports, they don't even do that. And the levels that they reduce it to, it's so ridiculous and it's not even checked up on. So some sports, it'll be 5 nanomals, some it's 10 nanomals, some it's 2.5 nanomals, some it's 1 year, some it's 5 years. And there's no testing system in place to make sure they're doing this. And also, women are under 1 nanomol of testosterone per litre of blood. So even reducing it to 2.5, you still got 2.5 times once you've gone through male puberty. But in fact, women have a different Q angle. So, for example, in football, women have 6 times as many ACL injuries, that's knee injuries, because our Q angle is bigger because we have childbearing hips. So that also sort of extrapolates to power that you can put through a stride on a bike, for example, the power that you can get. So none of these things can be changed by reducing your testosterone. So what we need to do is we need to sensibly relabel the categories: female, meaning biological female, and then open and inclusive. And I will reiterate what I've said all along. I don't want anyone to be banned from sport. I don't want anyone not to be encouraged to do sport. It's really important we do sport. But it needs to be fair, and inclusive can be in an open category, and wear what you like in that category. Call yourself whatever you like, and be safe, but compete fairly.
But then I am baffled because it is so logical, it is so rational, it just seems so fair when we describe it in these terms. So what are the pressures being placed upon the Football Association and the English Cricket Board?
Wokery.
Who are they trying to please, Sharron?
A very small group of men's feelings versus 51% of the world's population that are females, who just don't seem to matter, basically. And what's really fascinating is, you talked about swimwear. At the NC2As, which is the college championships in America, when Leah Thomas was competing, we had transgender men, that is biological females, identifying as men and competing with the women. And the women had no problem. So providing they weren't on testosterone, which is illegal, as we know, and would cause you a 4-year ban, women have no problem with how anyone identifies, providing they're racing other females. So that should also apply to men.
I hate to interrupt you, but your timing on the show this morning could not be better, and this is coincidental.
I know, I'm looking at it.
We just have to explain to people who are going, what are those pictures? They don't look transgender. This is the lighting of the Olympic flame. Yes. Of course, it is Olympic year. These are beautiful images. Just remind us, Sharron, of your first Olympic experience and how important that was. When was it even?
And that was a 13-year-old, that was way back in 1976. One of these youngsters that was on a pathway that wouldn't have got there if we don't protect pathways. And Paris will be my 13th Olympic Games. Nice. So, yes, I will be there in Paris with my microphone on the side of the pool. Extremely excited about that. They are an incredible competition. We were talking, weren't we, about money, and Seb bringing money into track and field on Thursday. The IOC makes a fortune out of being able to control the IOC and not really passing on any of that to the athletes themselves. It's an incredible event, but it does need to change. The IOC needs to be way more transparent, and a lot of this problem in sport has been caused by them. It really has. And they're still funding incredibly bogus, unscientific studies to try and support their position that there's no biological difference between men and female. And if that was the case, we wouldn't have men and female races. So they know that's not true. It's just crazy.
Maybe there should be a trans category, Sharron.
Yeah, except for we tried that in World Aquatics. So in October of last year, we had the first trans category, and not a single trans athlete turned up.
Funny that.
This isn't about them. Yeah, funny that, isn't it? This isn't about them wanting to be included. This is about them wanting an advantage in women's sport.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
These pictures are giving me goosebumps, Sharron. I don't know how clearly you can see them from there. I wish we had the audio, because it looks like this lady is chanting. Is she singing or is she talking?
I honestly don't know, but I have to say, I did love the Olympic Games in Athens. Do you remember all the hassle? And they were saying it wasn't going to be ready,
that
wasn't sorted out, the hotels weren't built, and yet it was an absolutely fantastic Olympic Games, because we could see the Acropolis, and it was a celebration of the 100 years of the modern Olympic Games. And I have to say, each Olympics is really special in its own right. But for me, my first ones will always be special. I think Athens will always be special, and London, was just, we did a marvellous job. We did a really fabulous job, And I'm quite excited to hear that Glasgow might be having the Commonwealth Games, because we nearly lost them.
Now, just remind us, because that's the Commonwealth Games which couldn't go ahead because of funding issues. Am I right?
Yeah, and I think a little bit of this is because we're turning these major events into such a massive circus, and it's not necessary. We spent so much money on Birmingham at the Commonwealth Games, and it was incredible. But the money that was used to build brand new facilities, that was built to, build new facilities to house the athletes in, not necessary. Use facilities that we have, use student accommodation. Providing athletes have got a good bed and good food, what they need then is a good track and a good pool, but they don't need a brand new one. They just need a good one. So we could run these events much, much cheaper, and then we won't lose them.
Yeah, OK. Sharron, this absolute beacon of common sense and brilliance, as always. It's so lovely to see you. Thank you so much, Sharron. I'm just sorry that you have to go to the Olympics with the BBC. That's the only thing I feel sorry for you.